Ted Cruz drops a bombshell.
I think the House needs to open an inquiry into impeaching Joe Biden. I have called for Alejandro Mayorkas to be impeached. I've called for the House to move forward on impeaching Merrick Garland. And I think with Joe Biden, it depends on what the evidence proves. If you read the FD 1023, the FBI report that details the allegations from the confidential human source, if those allegations are true, then Joe Biden, as the sitting vice president, solicited and received a multi-billion-dollar bribe from a foreign national in exchange for official favors as vice president of the United States. If that's true, he is guilty of bribery, and of course he should be impeached and removed from office.
You think it's about time?
Let's get ready to rumble! You can't handle the truth.
Hi, I'm Pastor Marty. This is the Afternoon Drive. Thank you so much for tuning our way. Make sure you're a subscriber to the channel. Once you check your subscription status, please like and share this video. Smack the word all so that you can get notification of my rants. And as you share this video out to your own social media pages, it helps build our algorithm and let people know we're here. Welcome to the Afternoon Drive. Ted Cruz recently appeared on Newsmax with Eric Bolling, and he had some interesting things to say about what's going on with Hunter, and is it time to impeach Joe Biden?
But Eric, the most important purpose of this deal, I believe, was to protect Joe Biden, to cover up and cut off further investigation into Joe Biden's personal culpability in corruption and criminal activity. And I think there has been so much attention on that lately that that's what led DOJ to backtrack and say, well, given all of this new evidence, we're continuing to investigate. And that's in turn what led Hunter Biden's lawyers to say, well, never mind, and cause the whole thing to blow up. For years, what Joe Biden on the campaign trail had said and what the White House has said is Joe Biden has never discussed business dealings with Hunter, has never discussed. That's what they said over and over and over and over again. As you noted, Devin Archer is getting ready to testify to the House that Joe Biden discussed it over 24 times, including talking repeatedly with these overseas oligarchs who were paying Hunter. The White House realized they had a problem. So yesterday, when Karine Jean-Pierre was asked, she said, I've answered this question 1,000 times. I'm going to tell you the exact same thing I've said every time before. She said, Joe Biden was never in business with Hunter Biden. Now, mind you, that's not what she said every time before. What she said before is Joe Biden never talked to Hunter about his business deals. And last night they tried to flip it to, well, he wasn't in business with Hunter. They weren't formally partners. It was an attempt to run away from their repeated lies that he'd never discussed the corrupt overseas business deals with Hunter, because the House is hearing testimony this week that Joe Biden did many, many times.
I wonder, questions and controversy continues today about Hunter Biden, your son's
there is no controversy about
overseas
my son.
dealings.
It's
Just
all a
questions.
lie. It's a flat lie because the president has nothing else to run on.
How is your role as vice president in charge of policy in Ukraine and your son's job in Ukraine? How is that not a conflict of interest?
It's not a conflict of interest. There's been no indication of any conflict of interest from Ukraine or anywhere else. Period. I'm not going to respond to that. Let's focus on the problem. Focus on this man, what he's doing that no president has ever done. No president.
I think the House needs to open an inquiry into impeaching Joe Biden. I have called for Alejandro Mayorkas to be impeached. I've called for the House to move forward on impeaching Merrick Garland. And I think with Joe Biden, it depends on what the evidence proves. If you read the FD 1023, the FBI report that details the allegations from the confidential human source, if those allegations are true, then Joe Biden, as the sitting vice president, solicited and received a multi-billion-dollar bribe from a foreign national in exchange for official favors as vice president of the United States. If that's true, he is guilty of bribery, and of course he should be impeached and removed from office.
Now, this interview happened about 24 hours after former President Donald J. Trump asked Where are you, GOP Senate? Where are you? The House of Representatives, the conservatives there, the Republicans there, are trying to press back on Hunter. They're holding investigations. They're dealing with whistleblowers. There's a mountain of evidence showing the corruption and the criminality of the current sitting president while he was vice president, selling influence. Hunter Biden, the crackhead that never has ever been able to really hold a real job, yet he's paid millions of dollars by a foreign entity, and nobody thinks that this is a problem. The Republicans in the House of Representatives are pushing back on all of this and trying to get to the bottom of what's happening. But Bitch McConnell and the rhinos like Mitt Romney, seemingly over in the Senate, don't care anything about it. They just want politics as usual. Well, apparently Ted Cruz heard that, and he's decided now to lead the charge to start from the Senate side of things, beginning to put some real pressure on the Biden White House. On the one hand, I say, good, about time, thank you. On the other hand, I also know that Ted Cruz is a bit of an opportunist, and he's, saber rattled before, and he doesn't always actually follow through. He gives a great interview. He's articulate. He says the kind of things we like to hear, but there's not always the full follow through like we would like to see. So we will see, but there is certainly more than actual evidence. How many times did they trump up, pardon the pun, charges on Donald Trump like they are with these indictments, but while he was president, to impeach him? Adam Schiff for brains. We've got the smoking gun. We've got the evidence. I've seen all of the evidence. Yes, there was collusion with Russia. No collusion. Was anything ever done to Adam Schiff for his repeated lying and misleading of the media? No. He was doing the bidding of Nancy Botox Pelosi, and that's that. The phone call between President Trump and the president of Ukraine that they tried to impeach him over, that he was withholding funding. Now we have Joe Biden in there just giving billions of dollars to Ukraine. There's no oversight. There's no accounting for what's being done with it, how it's being handled, etc., etc., etc. Is that payback for the money that they, quote unquote, invested in the Biden crime family? The big guy. The media's not curious about this. Apparently, a lot of Republicans aren't interested in this because they don't want Donald Trump back in the White House. And the truth is, when this all started to come out in October of 2020, Joe Biden would have never had a path to the White House, but the media chose to ignore it, and the intel communities got involved and killed the story. Emma Jo Morris, who was a senior political editor at the New York Post, broke the Hunter Biden laptop story. And when she tried to get it out there, she was immediately censored and censured by social media. They pulled it down, called it Russian disinformation, etc., etc., etc. Had that information been out and readily available, had the media actually done its job with that information, Joe Biden would have never had a path to the White House. But of course, it was not allowed to get out. It was discredited as so-called, Russian disinformation, and Emma Jo Morris was what they do. They trashed her reputation. Well, she recently appeared before Congress to give an accounting of what actually happened. Now, it's a rather lengthy statement that she gets, a little over 5 minutes, so I have purposely sped this up on purpose so it doesn't take quite as much time. And then I'll have some commentary on the other side of it. But I want you to hear her comments in their entirety because the lying legacy corporate corrupt mainstream media, as well as certain leftist pundits here on YouTube and other social media platforms, are zeroing in on the fact that there's a point in this testimony where she just starts laughing. And they're like, see, this is such nonsense. Even she doesn't believe it. She's just there at the bequest of the Republicans to try to put a spin on all of these false accusations against Hunter Biden and President Joe Biden, and it's so bad, even she can't take it serious. That's not why she was laughing. That's not at all why she was laughing. I'm going to let you watch this, and then we'll catch you on the other side.
My name is Emma Jo Morris, politics editor at Breitbart. I'm here today because I published a series of news stories 3 years ago in October of 2020 about Hunter Biden's now infamous laptop, also known as the laptop from hell, which is seen as some of the most scandalous reporting of the last decade. What was more scandalous than the reporting itself, though, was the fact that it exposed the unholy alliance between the intelligence community, social media platforms, and legacy media outlets. At the time, I was deputy politics editor at the New York Post, and my reporting showed that despite then-candidates Joe Biden's repeated and furious denials, he was apparently involved in the foreign business deals of his family. Over several days, just weeks before Americans would vote for their next president, I revealed verified, authentic emails from the Biden Scion's hard drive showing Ukrainian business partners receiving leaks from the Obama White House. I documented an off-the-books meeting between then Vice President Biden and a Ukrainian energy executive and introduced the world to the big guy who got action on a deal with CEFC, China Energy Company. The Post published exactly how the material for the reporting was obtained, even identifying our sources, as well as a federal subpoena showing the FBI was in possession of the material the story was based on and had been since December of 2019. But when the stories appeared on social media that morning, the venue where millions of Americans go to find their news and editors to get their angles, within hours the reporting was censored on all major platforms on the basis of being called hacked or Russian disinformation. Twitter refused to allow users to share the link to the stories, banned the links from being shared in private messages, a policy, by the way, that's used to clamp down on child porn, and locked the Post out of its verified account. Facebook said it would curb distribution and reach of the links on its platform. However, the stories were not based on hacked materials, nor were they Russian disinformation, and despite those claims appearing to come out of thin air at the time, we would eventually learn that they actually didn't come out of thin air at all. On October 19th, 5 days after the Post began publishing, Politico ran a story headlined, "Hunter Biden's story is Russian disinfo, dozens of former intel officials say." God, I can't even say that with a straight face, you know? Politico printed a letter completely uncritically from veteran members of the U.S. intelligence community, falsely claiming that the Post expose has, quote, all the classic earmarks of a Russian information operation. My God. Most notable among the signatories of that letter were Jim Clapper from former DNI, Michael Hayden, former CIA, John Brennan, former CIA, despite having such damaged credibility following their participation in the Russia collusion conspiracy theory. A few days later, on October 22nd, when Biden appeared in the second presidential debate and was confronted with the facts of the Post reporting, he said to Trump, quote, 50 former national intelligence professionals said this, what he's accusing me of is a Russian plot. But it was not, and he knew that. Now, fast forward to this year, 3 years later. Just last spring, House investigators revealed it was a call by now Secretary of State Antony Blinken to former acting CIA Director Michael Morell that prompted the spy letter published by Politico, which bypassed agency approval processes that would have been normally applied. It is also now known that ahead of my reporting, federal agencies were priming social media companies to execute an operation to discredit it. According to internal documents released by Elon Musk upon his acquisition of Twitter, the FBI and other intelligence community members essentially directed the platform's censorship operation, in part externally by working with top management and in part internally by social media companies hiring eye-popping numbers of agency alumni. Journalist Michael Schallenberger reported, based on documents he obtained from Musk, that during all of 2020, the FBI and other law enforcement agencies repeatedly primed Twitter executives to dismiss reports of Hunter Biden's laptop as a Russian hack and leak operation. Feds arranged for top secret security clearances to be granted to Twitter management and even had encrypted messaging networks set up, which they dubbed a virtual war room. To this day, hundreds of people from the intelligence community work at social media companies. Over the last few years, my reporting has been confirmed by virtually every mainstream news outlet, from the Washington Post to the New York Times to Politico, when the stakes were nothing, by the way, 2 years later. No one denies that the laptop is real, that the origin story is exactly what I told you it was in the first place. This elaborate censorship conspiracy wasn't because the information being reported on was false. It was because it was true, and it was a threat to the power centers in this country. What this relationship between the U.S. government officials and American corporations represent is an unprecedented push to undermine the First Amendment, the right to think, write, read, say whatever we want. And how we respond will determine whether we see a free press as inalienable or as optional.
She was not laughing because she doesn't believe it. She was not laughing because she's, been dragged before Congress to somehow help out the Republicans, pin stuff on Hunter Biden, and she's just to the point where I just can't go along with this anymore. That's not why she was laughing. She's laughing because sometimes, you have to laugh rather than, literally completely, totally lose it, go insane, snap, and do something that you later regret. She sees. She has the evidence. The first-hand eyewitness of how corrupt the government is, that the police state, the oligarch establishment swamp, so did not want Donald Trump to return to the White House that literally the FBI, the CIA colluded together to lie. To say that it really wasn't Hunter's laptop, it was Russian disinformation, yada, yada, yada. That it was nothing but lie on top of lie on top of lie on top of lie. Absolutely corrupt, criminal, treasonous. And yet Donald Trump's the guy under indictment? That's why she's like shaking her head and laughing like, I cannot believe that you don't see this. That the director of the FBI and others are not sitting in jail cells right now. Just like there was no Fedsurrection on January the 6th. No. Of course not. It was just all crazy Trump people. There were no members of the FBI, CIA, and other governmental agencies who were mixed into the crowd with the intentions of stirring things up, making things happen that day. No.
In fact, tomorrow, I don't even like to say it because I'll be arrested.
Well, let's not say it.
We need to go, I'll say it. All right. We need to go in to the Capitol.
Let's go!
So I'm going to put it out there. I'm probably going to go to jail for it, okay? Tomorrow, we need to go into the Capitol. Into the Capitol. What? No! Peacefully. Fed. Peacefully. Okay, folks, spread the word. As soon as the president's done speaking, we go to the Capitol. The Capitol's this direction. Start speaking. We are going to the Capitol, where our problems are. It's that direction. He spread the word.
Emma Jo Morris got this absolutely right. She had the Hunter story, had it been allowed to get out, but of course the FBI and the CIA and others. We have the testimonies of Mark Zuckerberg and others within Google and our other social media platforms. They say, yeah, when the CIA said, oh, you better pull that down, it's disinformation, we just did it. Censorship, arresting your political opposition, like indicting Donald Trump 3 times. Apparently there's now a 4th indictment ready to come down. In the meantime, the true criminals, the real criminals, Hunter and his father, walking around like they haven't got a care in the world. It's tragic. It's shameful. But this is why we've got to keep the pressure on. We've got to keep getting the truth out. The truth really will set us free, and more Americans are waking up to what's going on. And put some pressure on your Republican senator. Put some pressure on your Republican congressman. It's time to impeach Joe Biden.
I think the House needs to open an inquiry into impeaching Joe Biden. I have called for Alejandro Mayorkas to be impeached. I've called for the House to move forward on impeaching Merrick Garland. And I think with Joe Biden, it depends on what the evidence proves. If you read the FD 1023, the FBI report that details the allegations from the confidential human source, if those allegations are true, then Joe Biden, as the sitting vice president, solicited and received a multi-billion-dollar bribe from a foreign national in exchange for official favors as vice president of the United States. If that's true, he is guilty of bribery, and of course he should be impeached and removed from office.